introduce myself. My name is Julia. I am from Israel, originally from Ukraine. Let me introduce, I have a master's degree in English language and literature. And in Israel, I am an English coordinator in a school for kids with special educational needs. I prepare them for matriculation exams. Mainly, my students have dyslexia, dysgraphia, ADD, ADHD, and other disorders that don't allow them to study in a regular school. And so I'm going to tell you, this is my program. I'm going to tell you where the learning disabilities come from. You will see some videos how to recognize kids with special educational needs or learning disabilities. I'll also tell you how dyslexia and the ADHD are connected. Usually, English teachers and not only English teachers have problems how to recognize kids with special educational needs. So I'll show you some materials and some actions how to catch their attention. I'll also tell you about traditional and modern methods. You will see some exercises and some methods of using technology in the classroom. And I'll tell you about visual learning tools, audio video activities, and finally, I'll tell about dyslexic English, about dyslexic talents. I'm going to tell for about 40 or 45 minutes, and I'll leave you 15 minutes for discussion. I'll answer your questions later in the end of the webinar. Okay, you're welcome. I want to start my presentation with the quotation of Albert Einstein. Everybody is genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid. So, Albert Einstein means that everyone should do what he or she can do. And since my presentation is going to deal with kids with special educational needs, I'll tell you how to teach them so that they won't feel themselves stupid. And now please pay attention to this picture. What does it look like? Of course, it is eye-catching. So one of the methods how to catch their attention is eye-catching material. You should use traditional English books with pictures and highlights and some video materials, because it's a good way to catch their attention. First of all, the materials must be eye-catching. It's one of the main methods. Now, please look at this boy. Which difficulties he has? He has a lot of materials, and probably he doesn't understand what is written. Of course, he knows how to read in English. Maybe he is not, he speaks another language. It doesn't matter, Russian or Hebrew or a different language, but he studies English. So, and what this boy says, if I can't learn the way you teach me the way what I can learn. And which problem does he have? Probably he has dyslexia, probably poor memory. Maybe he is hyperactive, he has ADD or ADHD or other learning disabilities. Anyway, the problem is he cannot study. And we, as remedial teachers, must help him. And in which way? Okay. If you teach kids that struggle, you should know where learning disabilities come from. They might be hereditary disorders, so these problems can run in families. If parents have dyslexia or dysgraphia or other disorders, kids might have them too. Not necessary, but they might struggle with studying. And another problem is brain injury or disease. So dyslexia can be a result of traumas and other injuries. Well, and now imagine that you start teaching at the beginning of the school years, at the first days of September, you might face the following pictures. Do you have any students who misunderstand your instructions, have unreadable handwriting, misspell too much, or misbehave, or maybe answer back to teachers, maybe they dream during the lessons, or hate studying, but come to school just because they have no choice? Please think and analyze your previous school year. If you have at least 3 positive questions, so you have students with real learning disabilities. Dyslexic students sometimes misbehave, or they listen to you but they don't understand you, or they misunderstand your instructions, or just watch at the window, look at the window. And sometimes, especially Israeli kids say, "Teacher, leave me alone. Sorry, don't ask me anything. I have a bad day today." Or, "I don't want to study. The problem is that my parents want me to study, but I don't. Oh, I hate these tasks. I don't want to do them." Probably kids don't answer back to you, but they listen to your explanation and don't hear, or they look at the blackboard, look at the board, and or they try to understand the instructions, but they misunderstand. Just they look, but they don't see. They listen, but they don't hear. And in this way, we as teachers must help them. Well, okay. And now someone, Anna Sokolova, asked me a question. Do kids really misbehave this way in Israel? Yes. Unfortunately, they do. But we as teachers mustn't answer back to them. We mustn't punish them. We just need to help them. And in which way, I'll tell you later. Yeah. First of all, we must realize why the child misbehaves. We should talk to him and ask, what's happened? Why are you misbehaving? Maybe you don't understand something. Maybe you have a bad day today, or maybe the material is too difficult. Okay. And if the child really struggles, if he or she has a document that he has learning disabilities, so next step is to help him in a specific way. Well, how to recognize kids with learning disabilities? You can watch a video.
One, two, three, Katy Perry Rose! Woo!
Okay, so you can see, you have just seen a video that sometimes kids make too much noise in class, or they just listen to the teacher but don't understand what she's talking about, or they try to understand the task but they still misunderstand. Or as you see in the third picture, they misspell, don't know how to write. They have ideas, for example, how to write a composition, but they misspell or miss vocabulary or confuse grammar and have a lot of problems. They have the ideas, but they don't have enough language, enough skills to express themselves. That is their problems. Nevertheless, many dyslexic kids have a high intellectual level. Indeed, they're very talented. And the example is Albert Einstein and many others that I'll tell about them later. There are two sorts of kids with learning disabilities. Firstly, they might be hyperactive. You have already seen a video that kids make a lot of noise, they're restless, they cannot listen to the teacher, they cannot work in groups, they push and tease other kids, and while they are doing a group task, they shout answers before they hear the whole question, and they don't let other kids to do the task. If they think that the task is too easy, they try to do it themselves, and they disturb. They're real troublemakers. Even so, even if they give wrong answers, they just want to be the first ones, because they realize that they struggle, but they try to compensate their disorder. They try to be the first. Also, there are daydreamers. As we Israeli teachers say, hyperactive or hyperpassive kids. Such kids never disturb the teachers. They never make any troubles in class. They can listen to you and listen attentively, but in fact, they misunderstand. They listen, but they cannot hear. Or They see what is written in the board or in the book, but they misunderstand. They look, but they don't see. And while doing the exercises, they can do it in a wrong way and make a lot of mistakes. Or they can do different exercises, or they can do the exercise what you ask them to do, but with a lot of mistakes. They fail. The problem is that both hyperactive kids and daydreamers make a lot of mistakes, and finally they might get up and stop learning. And how to prevent them from giving up? Of course, you can tell them, don't give up. London wasn't built in a day. Due to such proverbs, you can motivate them. But in my opinion, it's not enough. Proverbs, it's good, but there are also some different methods. Well, how are dyslexia and the ADHD connected? As I have already told you, that many dyslexic kids have attention disorder, or they can be hyperactive, or they can daydream. But both daydreamers and troublemakers have some things in common. The first, they make a lot of spelling and syntax mistakes. So they misspell, or they can write sentences in the wrong manner, or they miss the vocabulary, or just they lack vocabulary to express themselves. The second, they cannot read the text loudly since they're afraid of making mistakes. As I have already told, after some low grades, they often get up and stop learning. They explain it that they don't want to fail and they don't want to make mistakes. The third, they read slowly and they can be very exhausted from reading. So they prefer books with pictures, graphics, and charts. At the beginning of my presentation, I wanted you to pay your attention that my presentation is eye-catching. So, firstly, the books and the video materials must be eye-catching in order to catch their attention. And if you ask someone to read aloud in class, you shouldn't ask kids with learning disabilities. Probably they can read aloud quite well, but they're afraid of making mistakes, and they don't want other classmates to laugh at them. So if you teach in a group for kids with learning disabilities, you should read yourself or use audiobooks. I don't know how it works in Russia, but in Israel, there are classes for kids with learning disabilities or schools for special education. I teach in Beit Eckstein. It's a chain of schools for special education. In our schools, there are up to 8 students in each class, but 8 students are worth 30 students in a regular school, because even so, there are only some kids, a few kids in the class, but they might have different disorders. For example, some kids are good at English, but not very good at math. Some kids are hyperactive, or some kids are daydreamers. Some have dyslexia, some have dysgraphia, some have dyscalculia, or autistic spectrum disorder. But anyway, there are some universal methods how to keep them in class, how to motivate them. Okay, now let me continue. While writing compositions, they write their sentences short and non-informative in order to avoid syntax, grammar, and spelling mistakes. Well, in the Israeli school for special education, there is a program that kids with special education needs don't have to write long compositions. For example, while doing the matriculation exam, there are some modules that require writing compositions. For kids with medium level, they are supposed to write about between 80 or 100 words. It's module C for level which is about B1. So kids who are doing the matriculation exam in a medium level, they don't have to write 80 words. They can write up to 60. And if they cannot write themselves, if they have an unreadable handwriting, their composition can be recorded orally, or someone can write for them. For example, an extra tester can sit next to a student who struggles in writing and just write what the student tells him or her. Yeah. And those who do 5 points, it means the highest level of English, about C1 level, they don't write compositions at all. So the module G, which is equal to C1, to the European standard, they just do a text for reading. And if they don't understand, an external tester can read it for them. So the children look at the text and someone reads it for them. Otherwise, they can listen to a recorded version of the text. So listening and seeing are two senses that work together, and this method enhances their general understanding. Well, and next, during listening comprehension, students with learning disabilities don't understand what they hear, and that's why some information may be lost. So listening and reading comprehension are different things, but they are part of the matriculation exam in Israel. And not only matriculation exam, but in regular classes, kids, of course, do listening comprehension tasks. And sometimes they misunderstand. That's why we should give them more audio materials, audio and video materials to enhance their general understanding. But Israeli kids can be good at listening comprehension because they watch a lot of films without translation and listen to music, and this method really works. Well, and now remediation. What should you do? First of all, you should give kids more time to complete their classwork and tests. Just a minute. Okay. There are some comments. Okay. Yeah. A lot of participants have written quite a lot of questions, and let me answer them later. Okay, so I don't know how it is in Russia, but in Israel, students with learning disabilities need more time to complete their classwork and tests. Even they are given some extra time during their matriculation exams. Well, also, you need to reduce the level of distraction in the classroom. Distractible kids should sit away from windows and close to you. Also, give them pre-teaching activities. If you give them a text for reading, use pre-reading tasks. I'll also tell about them later. The same should be done while teaching literature, English literature. And also, if you give them a composition to write, it doesn't matter if the kids are in the 5th grade or in the 11th grade. So give them vocabulary and some other activities in order to activate their previous knowledge, because background knowledge often works well. And get them work in pairs or in small groups. It's a good idea to make struggling students sit next to students who are good, who are better at English, so that they can help them. Well, and also practice multisensory teaching. I have already told you about such methods as listening and reading at the same time, which is often practiced in Israel during the matriculation exam. So you should teach language using visual, auditory, mnemonic, technical, and kinesthetic strategies to enhance memory. If you teach in primary school, you can give your kids different materials so that they can make letters themselves. For example, you can use clay, plastilina, and other materials so that they will make English letters themselves. For example, A. And when do we pronounce A like E and like A? For example, cat. Please, kids, which letters do we need? We need letters C-A-T. In this way, we pronounce cat. And in which case we pronounce A like A? If in the open syllable, when we need the letter E in the end of the word, for example, name, which letters do you need? They are supposed to answer N-A-M-E. So they choose these letters and make the words name. We don't pronounce E, but we pronounce A as it is called in the alphabet. So this is a mnemonic method which works well when you teach in the 1st or 2nd or 3rd class, or if you teach privately. Well, okay, and the audio-visual and auditory method, you can let them, you can turn on the YouTube, choose some songs with titles so that they can see the text and listen to the music at the same time. Okay, how to catch their attention? Well, let me answer some questions. Anna Sokolova asks, it's the way how they talk to the teacher in the classroom. How to talk to the teacher, it depends on the kids, how they talk. If you see that your students really struggle, you should find out. You should talk to a child during the break, or maybe with his parents, and try to realize what the problem is. Okay, Yelena Petrova asks, they sometimes misbehave, but it is normal when they can control themselves. If they really can control themselves, it's good. Besides, if you give group tasks or tasks in pairs, they don't have to be quiet because they need to discuss the tasks. So it's impossible to keep quiet in class. But if you explain the material, of course, they should be quiet and attentive. If your kids can control themselves, it's excellent. But if they don't, try to find out what the matter is. Okay, Любовь Ковалева asks in Russian. В каждом классе бывают такие детки, поэтому приходится продумывать ход урока, учитывая их состояние. Все приходит опытом. For those who don't speak Russian, I'll translate. In each class there are such kids. That's why you need to be creative and to think how to conduct a lesson, and you gain it with your experience. Exactly, that's right. Okay, Yelena asks, it's especially difficult when there are 30 kids in the classroom. Okay, Yelena, as I have already told, if you find out that some kids have difficulties, you should make them sit next to you, but not next to the window. Ask them to sit at the first desks, the second desks, so that you will see them more, how they listen to you, how they participate in the lesson, and how they make progress. Okay, well, Tatiana Gennadievna Zorina thinks that we should change activities during the classroom, during the lesson. Exactly. It's a good idea to have 2 or 3 plans in store. For example, if you plan to teach a text for reading, and you see that your kids have a really bad day, not all of the kids, but some of them. So you can change the way of the lesson. Maybe you can offer them a video material with reading so that they can read the text and listen to it at the same time. Or you can give them a game connected to this text, or you can just have them talk. In Israel, there is also a program for spoken English, so that the kids discuss something during the lesson. Of course, you change the activities. You can provide them table games, or if you are allowed to use, if the kids are allowed to use personal devices such as mobile phones or laptops. I don't know how it works in Russia, but In Israel, kids are allowed to use their mobile phones. For example, they can download some apps. You can write on the board which app to use. They can use it in groups or individually, or you can conduct a class game. For example, Kahoot. There is a game called Kahoot. Let me write it for you. So you can download and just play with them. Okay, and well, Natalia Agamirzian asks that at the Lyceum where I work, there are no such students, but I have private students with learning disabilities. Okay, Natalia, you can use YouTube and other video materials, or you can use games. I'll tell about such games in my next seminar. I'll let you know when I will conduct the webinar about games in class. Okay, well, and now next step is how to conduct their attention, how to catch their attention. Let me show you another video.
ADHD and dyslexia commonly co-occur. So approximately 25% of children with ADHD have reading problems, and the converse is true. Approximately 25% of children with reading problems also have ADHD. Children that have both may have increased difficulty learning to read, increased difficulties with verbal working memory, and increased difficulties with executive functions. Very often, children who have both ADHD and reading problems have what we call a double deficit. So in addition to having problems with phonological awareness, they also may have very inaccurate reading because they may see the first letter and then not pay attention to the rest of the word. If a child has reading problems, it's important to assess whether the child also has ADHD or significant attention problems, and if so, to treat both the attention problems as well as the reading problems.
Okay, so there are different ways how to catch their attention. You can use traditional games, traditional English books with pictures, and you can let them highlight to bring them to school. And when they find something important in the text that they should pay attention on or answer the question in the end of the text, so I offer them to highlight the important information. Or this is a traditional way. The modern way is using computers in the class. You can use a class computer. I don't know how it is in Russia, but in Israeli schools for special education, each classroom is computerized. There is a computer in the class that you can use it as a television, or you can use the internet, YouTube, and you can play with them frontally, or they can use their personal devices, like the girl on the third picture. That she says, "The laptop helps me learn." Well, okay, traditional methods. Firstly, it's a teacher-centered lesson. It used to be so, but nowadays there are student-centered lessons. We used to write with the chalk on the blackboards, but now we use whiteboards and screens. We still use traditional textbooks, but nowadays smartphones and iPads are also available, and kids are allowed to use them. Notebooks. Kids still write in notebooks, but you can let them to write in blogs. You can create a class blog so that they will write themselves right there. Do the homeworks or write compositions, why they should do their tasks on the computers. Because in this way they can correct themselves, correct their spelling or grammar. Well, what else? Traditional method is presentation with pictures, but nowadays they can conduct online presentations. Yeah, and traditional teachers' instructions are still used, but also visual messages work, I think, better because they can catch the kids' attention and they make the teacher's work much easier. Well, as I have already told, why it makes the teacher's work easier, because teachers more teach and they less do with misbehavior, and they less deal with misbehavior in class. They can catch the kids' attention much more easily. Yeah. And they can conduct frontal lessons using interactive whiteboard. And finally, teachers can adapt materials for students with learning disabilities in a variety of ways. In which way? For example, if you have students with different levels of English, some of them might have a level A2 and some B1 or B2. You can use textbooks or prepare the materials themselves and mark them with the stars. For example, with the 1 star, it's an easy level. 2 stars, it's a more difficult level. And 3 stars. So your students can do the materials in accordance to their level of knowledge. And don't ask them to do all the materials if they don't manage, if they don't have enough time, because some of them really need much more time. Okay, now visual learning tools. I have already told that coloring and highlighting are highly recommended because they can catch their attention much easier and they make them focus on something important. Since if the texts are not highlighted, children miss the important information, but highlighting avoid misunderstanding. And of course, it prevents stress and frustration. And here are some examples how to teach them. How to teach spelling. If you teach kids in a primary or junior high school, You can ask them to prepare games themselves. They like it. Quite a lot of dyslexic kids are good at painting, so they can draw and paint themselves, or they can make them of clay or plastilina and such later such compositions, such as CH, for example, BL, FL, and you can play them games. Which words, how many words can you make that start with BL or FL or TR? And I'm sure that they will be eager to make the words. And you can make them work in groups and even organize a competition. Which groups can make as many words as possible? Teaching vocabulary. This photo was taken in a 4th class. Kids just start. In Israel, they usually start learning English in the 3rd grade, but in some schools they start learning it in the 1st grade, but it doesn't matter. Anyway, if you teach in a primary school, you can use such boards and they can stick the words they have learned in the lesson. Which words, for example, that start with B, start with C, D, just let them write the words, the main vocabulary they have already learned, and stick them in such way. So these materials are also eye-catching, and step by step they will memorize them. If you teach in junior high and high school, and you teach grammar, for example, present perfect, I agree that this text, this material might be difficult. Russian speakers and Hebrew speakers find it difficult because such form doesn't exist or in Russian or in Hebrew. And you can highlight, you can use the posters or regular textbooks that such forms must be highlighted. For example, I, you, we, they, have, and the verb in past participle. I have drunk the milk. He, she, it. So it must be written has drunk the milk. Students often confuse have and has. You can offer them such materials. Okay, and finally, it's graphic organizers for reading comprehension. In Israel, literature is a compulsory subject for matriculation exam, but in different countries, of course, teachers often give them texts for reading. If you see that your students really struggle, you can offer them diagrams like this with the beginning, middle, and end. They can write some words, what happened at the beginning, in the middle, and in the end of the story. Well, storytelling, how can you use it? You can provide them regular books or electronic books, audio books, so that they will be able to read and listen at the same time. Songs. This is an example of a song, Country Roads by John Denver. You can find it on YouTube. Well, so some kids, some dyslexic kids are good at music. If someone plays the guitar, you can let him or her do it, but it's not compulsory. You can just turn on the YouTube and provide them listen to the music, to the songs with words. But not only to listen, but of course give them some tasks to do. For example, to complete with the missing words, to make the sentences in the correct order, or if they study vocabulary, you can ask them to find the sentences in present simple, present continuous, present perfect, and some other grammar. It depending on the material you teach, because the same task, the same material can be provided in different ways, depending on the level. If you see that your students are very weak, just beginners, you can make them fill in the missing words when you give them the work pages. Kahoot. I have already told you about this game. So if you see that your students are really unfocused, just offer them this game. You can make it at home and use American questions, for example, countries and their culture. England. The question, what is the capital of England? A, London, B, Manchester, C, Birmingham, 4, Glasgow. And so that they will press the correct answer. And then you will make the score. And you can announce who the winner is. Okay. And finally, the dyslexic talents. Of course, dyslexia and other learning disabilities, it's not a sentence. People with learning disabilities can be scientists like Albert Einstein, or actors, artists, writers, they can be engineers, and they can do many different professions. So our task as teachers is to keep them motivated and interested, and to provide the accommodations. For example, give them more time to complete the task, provide eye-catching material, and if they get low grades, you should encourage them. Just give them success orientating materials. Well, and if you are interested, you can write to me. Here is my email. And now I'll answer your questions. Okay, Galina Danilova asks, what kind of books do you use at lesson? Israeli Ministry of Education provides different books, and if you are interested, you can write to me, and I'll send you the example of. I'll send you some examples of books. Well, Natalia Fedotova asks, is it extremely hot in Israel now? Of course, really hot. The temperature is about 35 degrees, but we don't feel it because everything is conditioned. Now I am at home. This is my room where I conduct private lessons. And in my room, the air conditioning is working. That's why I don't feel any heat. Thank you very much. Okay, Tatiana asks, can you please write the website in this chart? Which website? Kahoot. Yes, the website. Yes, someone, Natalia Zharkova, has written Kahoot and some other links. Okay. Well, okay. Well, and Anna Sokolova offered a link, futurelearn.com. There was a very good free online course on autistic spectrum. They might repeat it again. Okay, very good. Well, and Basilaya Nana Narimanovna writes that I have got all modern methods in my classroom. Okay, I'm happy for you. And, Anna Sokolova writes, they also had a course on dyslexia. Okay, well, Lepenko Ludmila writes, our school does not have special classes for such students. How to organize everybody? Okay, well, first of all, it depends on the age you teach. But anyway, kids like playing games. You can devote 1 or 2 lessons to creating games. I'm sure that they will be eager to make the games themselves. For example, snakes and ladders. It's a game with cubes that up to 4 people can play. You can create board games or cubes. Let me show them to you. For the beginners, you can make cubes yourself with letters. For example, this is the beginning of the letter FL. And make your kids to make words. For example, which words can be made? Flap, or flag, or flow, or flag. This is the beginning of the words, and this is the end. The same is with such cubes. ST, the beginning, stick, or stay, and so on. If you have more advanced kids, just let them play with cubes. When? So they can ask each other. If there is the question when, they can ask, for example, when did you visit your grandmother? Or why? For example, why are you wearing jeans today? It's up to them. Just be creative and make your students creative. For more advanced kids, there are cubes with different answers. For example, what is your favorite color? And the other student answers. Then he or she throws a cube and answers a different question. For example, who is your favorite singer? Who is your favorite athlete? Yeah. So there are quite a lot of ways. And if you teach if you teach literature, you can use these questions. For example, what was the saddest part of the story? Or what did you like What didn't you like? Why? What do you think will happen next? Just be creative. Remember, the main thing is that if you are bored, your kids will be bored too. Okay, now it's time to finish my presentation. Thank you for your attention. I was happy to have them on my presentation, and see you later. I'll publish on my page the information about my next webinars will be published on my page on Facebook. So contact me on Facebook. Thank you very much. Goodbye.